to an abrupt halt when she heard that. His expression was anything but enthusiastic. On the contrary, Franco felt annoyed and pursed his lips. Suddenly, Franco's gaze shifted to the side. Phoenix hastily took a step back, calling out hesitantly, "Your Highness." By then, Moran was already right in front of him. She narrowed her eyes at him, then gave him a teasing smile. "Your intentions are so transparent." Suddenly, her expression shifted, and she whispered into his ear in a dead serious tone, "If your magic research needs more funding, then you'd better bring me some results." Then Moran lifted his chin with her hand. Her eyes stared coldly into his. "Stop playing these silly games, understand?" As soon as the words left her mouth, Moran stepped back, putting distance between them. As she turned to leave, she didn't forget to shoot Phoenix one last glance. That face became even more beautiful when she smiled. "Go get some rest, little brother," and he just stared blankly at a lock of Moran's hair. Moran immediately spun around to face Phoenix. He was taken aback as he watched her get closer and closer. Then Phoenix leaned against the wall and gasped. He quickly covered his mouth. She had seen right through him. Just then, Lily, who was up ahead, called out, "Mr. Phoenix, please follow me." And she whispered into his ear in a dead serious tone, "If your magic research." "Hey miss, can you tell me what Her Highness likes?" Lily coldly refused. A royal guard cannot casually disclose Her Highness's personal affairs. However, he didn't give up and pressed on. "Then tell me how." Phoenix was so shocked his jaw dropped, and a few soft strands of hair at the nape of his neck stirred slightly. In the past, Her Highness's personal guard unit had 4 people, and besides me, they were all men. A royal guard cannot casually disclose Her Highness's personal affairs. However, he didn't give up and pressed on. "Then tell me how." "Hey miss, can you tell me what Her Highness likes?" Lily coldly refused. One time an argument broke out, so Lily attacked them with her sword. They were speaking about Her Highness in a vulgar way in private. I couldn't stand to hear it, so I fought them. Lily's voice softened as she recalled being on the verge of defeat. "I was fighting 1 against 3. The best I could manage was a stalemate." He clenched his fist and answered her, "Coming right away." Then Phoenix trotted to Lily's side, smiling with a somewhat fawning expression. Lily caught it, and in her surprise, she turned to look in the direction where Moran was standing. "Your Highness!" Moran's face was more stunning than ever. She waved at Lily and gave an order, "Take care of this trash for me." Moran's words struck everyone like a bolt of lightning. "If you win, you will be my one and only personal guard." Moran was now watching Lily play on the lawn. She thought to herself in silence, "Ever since I learned Lily has poor digestion, I've walked her in the flower garden every single day. But just when I couldn't hold on any longer." Then another sword came flying from a distance, thrown by Moran herself. Everyone likes Lily, and even the way they look at me is no longer filled with fear or malice. Then a guard approached to get a look at Lily, who was resting in Moran's arms. "I think it's time for Lily's social debut," she thought, while picking a blade of grass from Lily's soft fur. "I'll let the people of the Moran Empire know that Lily is my most important child, and I'll also use this opportunity to see how many nobles belong to Miafield's faction." Moran's eyes were pensive as she stared at the blade of grass in her hand. Moran watched as 2 maids looked at the little one with adoring eyes, a sight she'd seen from visiting nobles and other guards and servants as well. She stood facing him. "I want to throw a 1-month-old party for Lily, invite all the nobles in the capital." It seems even she felt out of place among those treacherous nobles. The nobility might look harmonious, but in reality, they all have their own positions and factions, especially given my past reputation. Very few people support me, only those with terrible reputations who want to use me for their own evil deeds are on my side. As she thought, she recalled the 3 invitation cards, each with a different color. Her expression was a bit sorrowful. How many people would actually dare to side with me? The scene shifts to Moran, smiling and pointing as she gives Phoenix an order. 10 days from now, I will be hosting a 1-month celebration for the Holy Beast Lily in the Royal Banquet Hall. You are cordially invited to join the celebration. Martina Moran, with a tone that was respectful and concise, to invite them to the party. This was the first filter. The face of a nobleman appeared with a despicable smile. On his lips, he stroked his chin after reading the letter. "Those who agree to attend the party either want to align themselves with my wicked faction." Following that was the sight of a gentle old lady attentively reading the letter, which was all within Moran's calculations. "Or they are moderates who have recently changed their opinion of me." Another card appeared, stained with a drop of blood soaking through the paper. The second card was a black one. Therefore, I had Mia prepare 3 types of invitations. The first was a white card sent to all the nobles. "Then you should prepare to face her wrath." This card was a threat, just like the things I used to do. The nobles who agree to attend after being threatened are the ones I can bring under my control. There's still a lot of use for such fence-sitters. A noble couple trembled uncontrollably as they read Moran's letter, fear evident on their faces. At that moment, Moran couldn't help but recall Miafield's cold demeanor, along with the people under his command. Among those who adamantly refused me, some were Miafield's people, backed by my brother, which is why they dared to treat me so coldly. But there was also a group that wouldn't yield to threats, and those are the truly righteous nobles. I used the third card to filter them out. Finally, Moran placed a few gold coins on the third card. The third card was a pink one, sent to those who refused me a second time. "I respect your courage," sent to the nobles who refused me the first time. "If you dare to treat a princess's invitation as nothing." This card was a bribe. She pictured the greedy face of a fat nobleman staring intently at the coin in his hand. Nobles who are willing to accept a bribe are, of course, not truly righteous. They are my brother's subordinates who are the easiest to bribe, and they will later become my undercover spies. Everything was like a chessboard laid out before Moran, her eyes pensive from constant thinking. In the end, the people who still refused me are either my brother's most loyal followers, or they are truly righteous nobles with unwavering principles who are not easily swayed. At this, she smiled triumphantly and raised the chess piece in her hand. After the third filtering, the stance of every noble had become as clear as day. A gleaming golden chess piece stood tall among the toppled black and white pieces. Next, I just need to defeat them one by one. Time passed in a flash, and a few days later, Morin's hands held her long dress, her posture straight. But besides the nobles, there was still one other person I needed to appease. That bigwig has been sending me letters these days, visiting as many as 10 nobles a day. Her steps grew faster and faster, the soles of her shoes scraping against the floor. After receiving the replies, he still has to organize intelligence on the nobility. Even a man of iron couldn't keep this up. Suddenly the door was thrown open, and Franco, who was busy working, turned his head in surprise. His face was flushed from the fever. "Your Highness, why would you come to your subordinate's room?" Seeing how flustered he was, Moran just helplessly put her hands on her hips and watched. "Didn't I give you one day off to rest? Why are you still working with a fever?" Franco's head was spinning like a pinwheel. He smiled even as his vision blurred. "I must get these letters organized first. It will be helpful to you that way." Moran ignored everything, grabbing him firmly by the collar and dragging him away. "It's not necessary. You get in bed for me." Suddenly her body froze when she found she couldn't pull Franco. The atmosphere between the two of them became awkward, and the sight made him unable to stop himself from laughing. Franco's cheeks flushed even more. "I'm a whole head taller than you. If you use all your strength, you might get hurt." Moran's hand tightened on his lapel as she warned him in a loud voice. "No laughing. If you laugh again, I'll dock your pay." "Yes." Franco replied helplessly, unable to hide his indulgent affection for Moran. "All right, I will listen to you. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it." After that, he stood up and left his desk. Suddenly, Franco moved close to Moran. At the same time, he covered his mouth with his hand and whispered into her ear. "It's best that you don't come here. I'm worried I'll get you sick." He gasped as soon as she placed a hand on his forehead to check his temperature. Moran looked up at Franco. "It's better than this morning. You just need to get some good rest." Seeing this, he blushed and quickly reached up to grip her wrist, his face now pressed close to Moran's. His hand didn't want to let go. "You can't do things like this to your subordinate." Hearing that, Moran couldn't help but frown. She stared at Franco and feigned anger. "Even you want me to abide by the etiquette of a princess? If those people already call me a villainess, it's pointless to respect the rules anyway." His fingers grazed against her palm. Franco lowered his head, letting his long hair hide his eyes. "That's not what I meant. I was trying to say that if you treat your subordinate too well." Then he lifted his head to look at her, forcing a bitter smile to his lips. "Then that subordinate might get the wrong idea." Moran's face was filled with astonishment. Her eyes widened as she stared straight ahead, and her voice suddenly rang out, shattering the awkward atmosphere in the room. "I will treat my own subordinates however I want." Franco's hand had let go by now. He sorrowfully turned his head to the side and spoke. "I know that's the kind of person you are, but I can no longer." Then, he clasped his own hands and softly asked her to leave. "Please leave. You have more important things to do." Franco's eyes held a hint of melancholy as he avoided Moran's gaze. "You can't waste too much time in your subordinate's place." Seeing this, she could only helplessly turn to leave in front of him. The door to the room slammed shut. Moran stood in silence and stared straight ahead, a single drop of sweat rolling down her cheek. Her face was filled with astonishment as she stared wide-eyed, unable to believe she was being sent away by her own subordinate. Could it be that he's in a bad mood because he's sick? Whatever, I'll have someone send some restorative medicine over to him this afternoon. By now, sunbeams were dancing on the wooden door. Franco lay sprawled on the mattress looking exhausted, and he raised a hand to cover his eyes. "Is it because I'm sick that I can't control myself?" Then, he turned on his side and clutched the handkerchief tightly. Franco's face flushed red as if scorched by a flame. "My mind is filled with such improper thoughts. I'm clearly just a servant. I shouldn't have such presumptuous thoughts." He curled up, holding the handkerchief close to his chest. "Even this handkerchief is hers. I have been marked by her. Everything I have belongs to her." Finally, he slowly closed his eyes while lost in thought. "Only this hidden desire is truly my own." Outside the magnificent mansion, a carriage came to a stop. The judge's estate. The maid and the butler bowed in unison before Moran, speaking together. "Your Highness, the master has been waiting for you for a long time. Please follow me." She slowly followed the maid, leading the way in front of her. Just then, Lily, who was nestled in Moran's arms, suddenly looked up. "Mommy, who are we going to see?" Hearing this, she smiled and replied, "A very strict person. He's the most important judge in our country." The little girl rested her chin on her hand with a confused look and mumbled, "What's a judge?" Moran quietly answered Lily's question. "If someone does something bad, he decides how many lashes the bad person will receive." The little girl seemed to imagine the painful scene. Douglas tightening his grip on a whip. Lily broke out in a cold sweat, terrified. "That's so scary. I promise to be good tomorrow." Moran immediately pulled the little girl into a tight hug to comfort her, offering a gentle smile to reassure Lily. "You don't have to do that, Lily. Just being your usual self is fine. He's not a wicked person." The cold and serious face of Douglas suddenly flashed through Moran's memory. Judge Matthew Douglas. He is a man born to judge sin, and in his heart, the line between good and evil is absolute. The image of his gavel striking down condemned me to a cruel fate of imprisonment. In my past life, he was the one who judged me, and sentenced me to a lifetime of exile. This time, among all the nobles I invited, Douglas, observing the situation from above, suddenly drew the curtains and turned away. Moran couldn't help but think to herself. He was also the first person to reject all three of my invitations. In a lavish and splendid room, Matthew bowed respectfully. Princess Martina, Your Highness, it is my honor to receive you, she replied just as politely. Good afternoon, Mr. Matthew. Martina graciously made the introductions, as this was their first time meeting. This is my daughter, Lily. The little girl in her arms was incredibly well behaved. Hello. However, at this, a worried expression appeared on Matthew's face. Your Highness, forgive me for speaking frankly, but it is not appropriate to bring the holy beast outside of the royal palace. She should be protected in a safe place, with frequent exposure to the royal bloodline. Martina paid no mind to his concerns. She cheerfully patted the empty seat beside her as a signal. Don't worry, I brought a full escort of guards. Please, sit down. Mr. Matthew, seeing that persuasion was futile, could only sigh, while Martina got straight to the point. I came here today to ask you in person. Why did you refuse to attend Lily's 1-month celebration? Matthew leisurely lifted his teacup to drink. Forgive me, Your Highness, but I have already answered clearly in my letter. I am not in good health, and I do not wish for this old man to be a bother at Your Highness's party. She was a little sad, but stubbornly refused to give up. What if I told you that you, Judge, are the only person I wanted to invite? If you could come for my sake to bless Lily, she would grow up to have a sense of fairness and impartiality just like you. He still firmly refused Martina. I thank you for your kindness, Your Highness, but I think someone more suitable should go. Hearing this, she furrowed her brows in annoyance, and Martina's fists suddenly clenched. She stood up without any regard for him. The fireplace in your room is too hot. I want to go out to the balcony for some fresh air. Lily gets sick easily, so please stay in the room and play with her for a bit. Matthew was stunned and was about to advise the princess, this is against protocol. However, Martina didn't care at all, flashing a mischievous smile as if to warn him. Are you really going to oppose me, the princess, on such a small matter? Matthew, feeling coerced, could only obey. As you command, Your Highness. Martina went outside, stretched, and took a deep breath of the fresh air, watching the scene of Matthew playing with Lily inside the room, and smirked. Our argument earlier was just an act. Lily and I planned it all beforehand. The little girl had volunteered for the mission without hesitation. Let me help you, Mommy. I'm the holy beast. I have to do my best too. Yes, milady, it is my honor, my lady. Martina could only shake her head in exasperation back then. I can't let her read any more of those cheesy romance stories. She unconsciously recalled memories from her past life. After being framed by my brother, I was originally sentenced to be hanged, but the judge persuaded the nobles to change the punishment to exile. His reasoning surprised me. Matthew was the very person who had sentenced Princess Martina back then. Even while in prison, she protected the holy beast's body, which is enough to prove she did not intentionally kill the holy beast. His actions confused Martina. He always despised my arrogant behavior, so why did he speak up for me in the end? Until I was exiled, while passing through a small village, something suddenly rolled onto the road. Martina curiously peeked her head out to see what was happening. Just then, a woman walked over and called out loudly, "Come home for dinner. If you don't come back now, Mr. Matthew will get angry." Hearing this, the children all happily ran over. Mr. Matthew won't get angry. He loves us the most. It was also at that moment she learned a secret. It turned out the judge had been renovating orphanages in many poor villages, raising children who had nowhere else to go. Lily was a little nervous facing Matthew right now. Although he was a strict and old-fashioned nobleman, he was very fond of children. She kept encouraging herself. Mommy said I just have to act like I normally do. You can do it, Lily. Lily asked, Mr. Whitebeard, do you hate Lily? Matthew was very surprised to hear this. No, Lady Holy Beast. Why would you think such a thing? The little girl was incredibly blunt, saying it was because he kept making such a serious face at her. He didn't hide it, explaining this was the required etiquette for the Empire's sacred beast. Lily's eyes lit up, and she made a suggestion. Then you should pet my head. People who like Lily always pet my head. However, Matthew hesitated. Was the sacred beast raised by the princess really this direct and friendly? It seemed the rumors about the princess and the sacred beast having a close relationship weren't just rumors after all. He hesitated, with his hand hovering in midair for a long time, before Matthew finally reached out carefully. The moment Lily felt the warmth from his hand, she was delighted. Don't hesitate, Mommy says my head is her favorite thing in the whole world. He gave a kind smile when he heard that, and Matthew replied gently, Your mother is absolutely right. Martina, watching from outside, was very satisfied with this scene. Yes, this was my true purpose, getting the stubborn judge. To directly take my side is impossible. She began to scheme, but having him accept, Lily would be a huge advantage for her future moves. Time passed just like that, who knows for how long, and before they left. Martina expressed a very respectful attitude. Mr. Matthew, I won't give up. I hope we will have a chance to sit down and talk again. She then picked up Lily to say goodbye to him. Come on, Lily. Say goodbye to the judge. The little girl obediently complied. Mr. Whitebeard, let's play together again next time, okay? Matthew's attitude had now changed significantly. Goodbye, Lily, Your Highness. I hope the bond between you and the sacred beast remains forever true. Yes, and just like that he watched the carriage depart, when suddenly a maid noticed something. Sir, you're covered in the sacred beast's fur. Please change so I can wash your clothes. However, Matthew made a surprising request. Could you gather all this fur and roll it into a ball? Upon hearing this, she easily figured it out. He really does like this child. Having been exposed, he just gave a few dry coughs as a warning, and before long, Martina was back at the imperial palace. As soon as they stepped inside, someone was already waiting for them, and a lady-in-waiting respectfully announced, Your Highness, His Majesty the Emperor and Her Majesty the Empress invite you to join them for dinner. Martina didn't hesitate to ask directly, is it just me? Or is Miafield also invited? The woman bowed and replied, "His Majesty said, this is a rare, cozy family dinner."